just going to wait here for a second, guys, and confirm that we are indeed live for you, and we'll get started.
Not the lights any better. Just leave it alone.
All right, we're started. So my name is Jamie Owen. I am one of the attorneys here at Student Legal Services, and we are here with UCF Global and also the Legal Aid Society of the Orange County Bar Association to talk about scams today. So basically a lot of how to not be a victim of scams. While we are talking today, just a little housekeeping up front. If you have questions, you can type them in the comments. I will see them and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. And then afterwards, if there's anything that we talk about that a resource or something like that, I will leave it down below as a pinned comment. So keep an eye out for that. Also, if you haven't already, definitely consider subscribing to our channel. You'll see our upcoming presentation. We have one upcoming on June 9th, also with the Legal Aid Society, involving domestic violence injunctions. But we will have more coming during Summer B and also into the fall that you guys can catch up with us and not miss those out, and then watch them if you can't make the actual live date afterwards. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Jay if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Jay Mobley. I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Society, where I work mainly with consumer debt and ID theft, scams, fraud, that type of thing. I've been doing this stuff for like 8 years. We help UCF students on a regular basis, unfortunately, that have fallen victim to different kinds of scams. So,
And then Christina, if you'd want to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Christina Khan, and I'm the director at UCF Global. And in particular, I work with UCF Global's international students and scholars.
And Michelle?
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Koo. I'm also an attorney with UCF Student Legal Services. So really glad that you could join us today because we're hoping to give you some good tips and prevent you falling victims of some of the many various schemes and scams that are out there.
Mm-hmm. And just again, my name's Jamie Owen. I am one of the attorneys here with UCF Student Legal Services. If you do not know, as long as you're enrolled as a UCF student, you have access to our office for free. So if you have a consumer issue, landlord-tenant, most criminal, traffic tickets, all that sort of stuff that we handle, you can definitely give us a call. And then if you're a member of our community that doesn't fit into being enrolled in classes and having paid the fee, the Legal Aid Society of the Orange County Bar is definitely a good resource as well for our other community members. So let me pull here. So are there any things that you guys think of to really give students or others a way to think of identifying something as a scam? Because I know the way that I think about it sometimes is what's the core element of the scam. Jay, did you maybe want to take a
yeah, I
stab?
mean, I always tell my clients, and I go back to the old saying that there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's always a catch. Look for the catch. If someone is giving you something in return for doing something for them, and it seems, wow, that's a really good deal, I'm going to make out great on this. You need to stop and think, why am I getting such a good deal on this? With like check cashing, hey, cash this check, you can keep 20% of it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just go to the bank and cash your own check? Why wouldn't you, deposit it or do something with it? And why are you so willing to hand me over 20% of your check? There's something wrong. So use good common sense when it comes to things like that. Long gone are the days when you can trust people with a handshake. It's just not that world anymore. So I always tell people, whether you're an optimist or a pessimist in your usual demeanor, you always need to be a pessimist when it comes to evaluating a situation where something's just not quite right. and err on the side of caution. Just walk away, you know.
Michelle, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, the check cashing one definitely comes up in lots of different flavors and variations. I have seen and tried to help many clients who've fallen prey to that lately. There have been a lot of employment scams that have gone around. In fact, I recently just spoke with a student who thought she found a job online. She even did a phone interview, supposedly phone interview, with a stranger, from a company, supposedly a corporate representative from a company. Her job would consist of basically doing not much of anything, but it sounded like a job at the time, and she was unemployed and didn't know what her employment prospects would be, so she jumped on it. The job consisted of they would be sending her packages in the mail. She was supposed to just check the exterior of them to check for damage and then ship them back out. And they would provide their shipping labels, and all of which, to me, what you described, it sounded more and more fishy as she went along. And then they were going to pay her, it was like thousands of that. They were going to pay her a significant amount of money just for doing this. So she actually did it for a while, and surprise, she's never gotten any kind of money out of it. But at least she didn't earn the wages she thought she would, but at least she did not really lose money from a bank account, because there have been other scenarios. I'm sure Jay's seen them. Christina may have met with some students who've fallen prey to some of this too, where they will somehow try to get you to send them money, somehow either sending you a fake check, wiring you they'll send you something, you're supposed to wire them money back. And then the problem is, when that fake check bounces, you then, as the banking customer, take the hit. I've actually been in court trying to defend someone who was victim of one of these scams. It was very difficult because case law, the court opinions that are out there side with the banks. They basically say the banks do not have to take the loss. That the customer most of the time ends up bearing the brunt of that, because until that check has cleared, you're not really supposed to be withdrawing funds. Or if you do, you're kind of assuming the risk when you withdraw real money to send to somebody, to wire to this friendly stranger that you've met online. And then when the check bounces and the funds from that fake check never get credited to your account, or if they did, they get taken away, then you're left owing, possibly owing money to your bank, or you have lost money. Even if it doesn't go negative, you will have lost that amount of money, and then good luck tracing down the stranger to try to recoup it. So that was kind of a long-winded thing, but based on some real cases that we've seen in our office, and it's very hard to get the money back, and very hard to get out of liability from your bank.
Yeah, just to kind of clarify, the check cashing scam is basically where someone gives you a check and they want something back from it. And that check on a face will pass usually soft clearance. So the bank will do a few different things to clear a check. So the soft clear will be usually 24, 48 hours. Your bank will give you access to all or most of the check. And then at that point you think, oh, great, it's cleared, and let me send it to that. But it has not hard cleared. A check takes usually about 14 days to hard clear. And then once it turns out that it doesn't hard clear, your bank then charges you back, which puts you in the red, or, at least losing money. And then usually you're responsible for ensuring that a check that you cash is correct, is a good check. So then you lose that. And I think sometimes employment urgency too, we'll have people, hey, I'm from out of town. My bank's not here. Can you cash this check for me? I'll let you keep part of it. Like, AMSCOT cashes checks, like, for a small fee. There's lots of ways you can get a check cash even if your bank's not here. So it's again kind of what Jay was saying. If it sounds too good to be true, that and gift cards. I think sometimes if someone's asking you to pay them in gift cards for something, that's usually not a legitimate way for people to want to get paid, is gift cards. And I think, Christina, you might have seen some of that with some of our international students where people have said that they're something and then try to get the student to pay in a significant sum in gift cards.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have seen that. And I think these scammers, they know how to prey upon vulnerabilities. So I think especially immigrant communities, international students, international scholars who are here on visas, I think it's something that the scammers really use to make people afraid so that they can get information from them that people would normally not give, but they prey on upon those fears. So I think people impersonating Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, the IRS, the Federal Marshal. We've seen a lot of different things where these scammers say that, you know, you're going to have major immigration problems, you're going to be deported, like horrible things that they tell people, and it makes individuals very scared that there is a true problem. So I think a way to tell a scam is that if the government has business with you, they're going to send you a letter or they're going to serve it to you in person, and they're not going to call you about it on the phone. So I think a way to identify a scam is if you have a phone call with somebody claiming to be with ICE, that's not going to happen. They're either going to show up to your door, unfortunately, or they're going to send you a letter. So if you get a call like that, it's definitely something to look for in terms of identifying scams.
Does anybody else have anything to add about some factors of big red flags for scams or anything?
I would just add that the check cashing one, not only does it cause a problem with your account being overdrawn, even if you can get that bank not to come after you for the money and they just close the account, most of them still report you as a bad banking client with a negative balance. And that'll prevent you from opening up a checking account or any kind of banking account anywhere else forever, you know, that stays there. So you really have to take it seriously, and just, I would say, don't cash checks for other people, period. That's the easiest way to identify a scam. Just don't, you know, don't do it for other people. There's other ways for them to do it. And then the one you mentioned about the mailing the packages, I actually helped a local private attorney with a case where those packages were actually cocaine.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it sounded fishy when the person was telling me about it. I don't know if that's what's going on in her case. She didn't open the inside of the packages, but yeah, I thought the whole scheme sounded kind of fishy. I told her to
Yeah.
stop. I mean, she did stop. I told her, don't do it anymore.
Yeah, they were on the hook for, you know, federal drug trafficking charges, and
wow.
ended up at least she had kept all of her emails about the scam and everything, and they quickly figured out she wasn't involved, but she had sent on I don't know how many dozens of kilos of cocaine.
Wow.
So it's got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just one of those things people don't usually hire you. I mean, that's just, you know, think of what normally happens. And I know that's kind of hard if you're maybe not from here, you're really young and you've not had a lot of life experience. I know at 18, I thought I knew everything. I didn't know anything. I still, now at 30 something, I know that I know less and less than what I think I do all the time. If it sounds weird or you're not sure, run it past a friend, you know, like if you're an international student, ask a professor, go talk to one of your advisors at UCF Global. Just be like, you know, hey, someone asked me to do this, or this is what I'm being asked to do, and does this sound right? Because we know that things are very different than maybe what you're used to, or you never handled the situation before. And that's what our office is here for. And that's what a lot of our support services offices are on campus for. And I'm sure the Legal Aid Society would be much happier to field a call like, hey, is this a scam? Rather than, hey, I think I've been victim of a scam. It's much easier. Yeah, it's much easier to prevent than it is, you know, to try to help someone deal with that. So let's say someone is in that situation, that they're getting those phone calls and they're being harassed and they are being told, hey, you're going to be deported. Hey, you might face criminal charges. You know, whatever it is, what can they do? If someone is targeting them, that. Michelle, you want to take a stab?
Yeah, well, first of all, if it's over the phone, I would just say hang up. Don't continue the conversation, because the more you continue, even if you're trying to continue it to get them off the phone, the more they'll try to lure you in. A lot of times these scammers are they can be quite sophisticated. Like we've said before, they can prey on people's vulnerabilities. The more they talk to you, the more they're gonna be able to, try to target you. So yeah, you could hang up if it's over the phone. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to just kind of keep a log, or at least keep, maybe, save that in your phone, save the phone log in your phone. Don't delete it, at least for a while. Or just, make some notes or keep a log if it keeps happening. A lot of times there's not very much that law enforcement can do, or they receive so many reports of these sorts of cases that they are not able to devote a lot of resources to investigating it. But often we will also advise that people go ahead and file a police report. Just kind of depends on how deep you get into it. I guess if it's just phone calls and you haven't really done anything and they haven't really victimized you, and just hang up and discontinue those kinds of conversations.
Mm-hmm. I know one of the
things further drawn in, then I would say file a police report. Even if they never catch the person, at least it's on record somewhere that you filed a sworn statement, you filed, a report about the incident. It'll be given a file number, an incident number by the police. It'll stay on file for a while.
Mm-hmm. I know one of the things that I usually will tell people is that if it's a phone number you don't know and you're not expecting a call, just don't answer it. If it's important, they'll leave a message and you can call them back. But there's a lot of stuff. I get lots of IRS, student loans, all sorts of stuff. I know my sister, were born citizens, was getting some stuff from ICE. And it's funny, given our family name and stuff, you wouldn't necessarily think she'd be targeted for a scam like that. But, threatening her, and she just laughed, and we're able to be in a position to do that. But if you don't know the people, don't talk to them. And what Christina said earlier, they don't call you. They don't. They send a letter. The IRS never calls people. They send letters.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
The one thing I've noticed is there's a thing. Do you know what spoofing is?
Mm-hmm.
It's where you randomly generate local numbers and you think somebody from the area is calling you, so you answer it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been called from my own phone number.
Mm-hmm.
So just because it seems like it's a local 407 number or something, it doesn't mean that. So don't think, oh, wait, this may be local. It may be important. If it's important, they'll leave a message and you can call them back. And if somebody calls you and says they're from some agency or some, these scams aren't always federal related or whatever. They're, it's a local repair shop or a local something. Just hang up and call that person directly, or call that company directly and say, hey, this is so-and-so. Are you trying to get a hold of me? It's always better for you to be the one calling somebody than just answering the phone. Never take for granted that they are who they say they are.
And for a known number for that company, don't just call back the number they called you from.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Look it up. If it's Spectrum, I usually throw Spectrum under the bus. If you think the cable company is coming after you, hang up, or if it was a voicemail, don't do that. You go ahead and do that. As someone who used to work for the cable company, for the most part, they're not calling you to try to get you to pay your bill. They'll just shut off your services.
Right.
So, and that sort of thing too. If someone's saying you owe money and you're not sure, some collection agencies, people will be like, is this actually a legit thing? Because they can be a little fly by night. They could be, but generally you're going to get a letter. And if you're not sure, that's definitely an opportunity that if you're a student, come see us. And if you're a member of our community and you live in Orange County, go talk to the Legal Aid Society. We can kind of look at it and be like, okay, yeah, this is a legit thing for X, or no, this seems like a shakedown.
Even if
To the
you know
point.
it's a legitimate debt that you had years ago, like at your old,
Mm-hmm.
you know, dorm or wherever you lived before, maybe an old cable bill or something like that. I still say don't talk to them over the phone. Ask them to send you something in writing, because a lot of times you can reactivate that debt and make it a
Mm-hmm.
brand new debt just by simply saying, yeah, I know I had that bill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because they only get a certain amount of time to take you to court for this,
Mm-hmm.
usually 4 to 5 years, depending on the jurisdiction, sometimes less. So if you've got an old bill that's more than, say, 2 or 3 years old, you kind of know it's yours and it sounds legitimate. You know, they have to prove they can collect on it. They
Mm-hmm.
have to prove that it's valid, and they have to do all of this in writing. So just don't talk to them on the phone. Say, send me something in writing. I'll talk to you after I review it.
Mm-hmm.
Things like
And
that.
and to the point of spoofing, something that we've seen is that
Mm-hmm.
the scammers are really savvy, and they will actually spoof a number that's like the IRS's number. And so it looks on your phone like the IRS is calling you, and they'll tell you, well, go to the IRS website and verify the number. They're just spoofing it. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
just be very cautious of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another thing along that line is this emails. Phishing comes and goes. So if you're not expecting an email, know that. I think recently, um, they tried to get UCF employees. So I know that I and one of our criminal attorney in the office got this email about owing a bill. I don't know if you got it, Michelle, and it looked legit. It was from a legit person, but I'm like, I know I don't owe UCF any money. So it can be really that. So you always want to look very carefully like who it's from. I know from
There'll
my
usually be a mistake in the email address.
hmm Or it'll be like, I know for like I got some from Amazon recently, and it was like not just at Amazon.com, it was like something else at .amazon.com. So it was just fishy. And then if you hover over the link to where it was going to take you, it was definitely not a legit website.
Right.
So just usually just don't give out your information. And it's just better that way, unless you know for sure that you're dealing with a legit company. And usually if you've initiated the contact, so you know that you've initiated with talking to a bank or something of that nature.
There's one they do that's, we got hit with it at Legal Aid. I got an email from my executive director
Mm-hmm.
asking me to run by a gift card over lunch for a client. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was worded perfectly. Hey, we do guardian ad litem work, so we work with a lot of kids. So there are times when we have freebies and we do, have donations that we can give out things to these kids. And it kind of sounded legit that, hey, can you grab me 4 $20 gift cards? And I'll catch you when I'm back in the office. I'm at such and such a meeting right now. It all
Mm-hmm.
sounded perfect, except that I know my executive director has somebody to buy these gift cards for her.
Mm-hmm.
And you hover over that email address and
Mm-hmm.
there's a dot out of place, or there's
Mm-hmm.
something, fishy about it. So
Mm-hmm.
if somebody does get something and it looks like from somebody, pick up the phone and call them and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, do you really want these gift cards? Or, verify it.
So Christina, I know you mentioned earlier that scammers will take advantage of a person's immigration status, but we know there's other things that they also will take advantage of. Michelle, you want to touch on any of those?
Sure. I think certainly these days, in light of the pandemic, a lot of people are out of work. So I think lots of different variations of employment offers, or supposed offers of employment are out there. We haven't seen too many of those, um, but it just may be that may be forthcoming. But they prey on people's again, their vulnerabilities, financial distress. Those are certainly things that will cause people to fall prey to it. Also, I think lately on the news, there's been coverage of any emails that you may get COVID-19 related, even if it's regarding testing or anything, that's something that may be a legitimate subject. But if you're not expecting it, and it's emailing you, asking you to input, to provide personal information, or anything like that. Again, be very wary. I mean, typically you're not going to be asked to provide personal and health related information or identifying type information in a random email that you're not expecting. So just be cautious about that, because there are all kinds of companies and scammers out there trying to kind of play up those angles, because they know that people are concerned, people are stressed, they're worried that they have this or may get it or could pass the virus to somebody, and they play up those things. There are lots of people can have lost their job, people cannot pay rent. There are different sorts of aspects of the current pandemic related situation that I think could make people particularly vulnerable at this time.
I don't know if you've seen anything, Jay, recently.
We've seen a lot of the COVID stuff, asking for health information. I'm not sure what they're after other than to get your information to use it for some other reason, because there's no quid pro quo in it. I'm not going to give you something and get something. But, I just would say all of the COVID, if you're getting emails about COVID and it's not an informational email from like, your local governmental agencies or something like that in the form of a newsletter, anything else, nobody but your doctor should be sending you information. So just don't go there. I'd never give information over the internet, email about any health information to anybody, even my doctor. There's always a secure portal. If they're a legitimate doctor's office and you've been there in person, they have a link they'll send you. You register for their online secured portal, and you email that way, not in general email.
Mm-hmm. Christina, have you seen anything current that people are going after students for?
Recently, we've noticed that a lot of students have been receiving phishing emails offering positions that students can apply for. Mm-hmm. And obviously the links are not legitimate companies, but the offers seem definitely too good to be true. But in a time when a lot of internships are being canceled because of COVID-19, it definitely preys upon vulnerabilities or hopes. Mm-hmm. So that's something we've seen recently, but we continue to see issues with calls impersonating immigration officials and requesting payment in gift cards or bank transfers, mm-hmm. just threatening very awful things that would scare any mm-hmm. rational person.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And kind of in addition to, I think, what's kind of going on right now, there's always the normal. So anytime you're more prone to giving, there might be scams to give money. So right now it could be to help people out who've been affected by, the pandemic, or with some of the charities that are trying to help with racial justice, or any of the other things that are kind of going on right now, natural disasters after a natural disaster, to give money to help out. So there's always people there. So we always recommend you do your research and you don't donate, because once you donate, they might have your banking information, they might have your address, they might have enough information in addition to whatever funds that they might get out of you. Tax season is always a big one. Now it's been extended this year, but there's always people get nervous about taxes. Tax law is complicated, but for most people, it's pretty straightforward unless you have unique situations. For most students, it's pretty straightforward unless you have unique situations. So be aware of that. Like I said earlier, the IRS is not calling you. They will be mailing you a letter if there's an issue. In fact, I got freaked out after the stimulus, when they sent out the letter from the Treasury Service from the president, that we were getting a letter from the Treasury Service. I'm like, oh crap, what's this? But it was just that. So that's the sort of thing you're going to get. I knew we didn't have an issue, but it was like, just for a second at this moment. And then personal circumstances. Now, I know Jay works a lot with some of the seniors in our community. And unfortunately, because of them, for various reasons, they might be a little bit more vulnerable. I know sometimes they get your grandchild's been arrested, and give them a lot of money and try to use details from our students to perhaps get some funds from grandma, but
I play hardball on those. I do get quite a few of those.
mhm,
And I do a lot of community presentations where I talk about that particular scam. And
mhm.
I just tell them basically, tell the person on the other end of the line, keep them and hang up.
Yeah, he got himself into it, he can figure his way out, right? um, and I think, you know, um, just think of some scams that we see that are out there in the community. I know we hit on the check cashing scam, and that can have a lot of different ruses. Um, Rental scams, we do on
Oh,
occasion
yes.
see those. I know, Jay, you were saying a little bit about that pre.
I see Craigslist
Mhm,
scams all the time. And unfortunately, the vast majority come from UCF students.
mhm,
I think they prey on the freshmen coming in a lot.
mhm,
But I've had, when you're changing, semesters or maybe moving with different roommates, it's happened to, all types of
mhm,
students out there where they'll look on Craigslist, they'll find this house that's nice, it's got a pool or something, and it's, reasonably priced, meaning it's below market,
mhm,
and they jump on it, and they'll end up. The scam usually requires first and last month's rent
mhm,
and a security deposit and an application fee and a
mhm,
processing fee
mhm,
and a key deposit and all this other money, and it just adds up to a lot. um, the one that I can recall right now, I had two UCF students. Their parents came in over the weekend, move-in weekend. They helped them move into this place, and the very next morning the sheriff was knocking on their door with a realtor and said, "Why are you in this house? It's up for sale." It was a foreclosure that was now bank owned. And sure enough, the sign for the sale was in the garage. The broken lockbox that should have been on the door was in the garage. And the kids were out, or the parents were out, $3,800.
mhm,
And they try to call the numbers,
mhm,
for the people they rented from. Nobody answers, And unfortunately, the way the law treats those is those people are trespassers
mhm,
because they don't have any contract with the actual owner of the home. The owner of the home had no knowledge of it, and they just fell victim. So not only are they out the money, the sheriff will put them out. They tend to give them like 24-hour notice that says, "Hey, I'm going to come back and you're going to have to be out of the property by tomorrow." Um, Sometimes I can negotiate a few days for move out, but a lot of times the realtors are just like, no, they have to vacate right now. And
mhm.
the sheriff will put them out as a trespasser.
Yeah. And one of the services that our office offers is lease reviews. So um, we highly encourage students before they sign the lease to come bring it to us. And that's one of the things we look at. Who are you signing the lease is that the property owner?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Fortunately, we don't see it too often, but it's definitely a reason. Most landlords, and I don't know if you've seen differently, Michelle, but the ones we deal with, they'll ask for a fairly substantial security deposit and then, yeah, first month's rent, but we don't usually see last month's rent asked for in our um, market, at least. For that, it would at least be a pretty big red flag to me, especially if you have parents who could be a guarantor if you're being asked for a substantial sum of money up front. Our international students, however, because they don't have credit here and they don't necessarily have family members, that is sometimes a circumstance they run into to kind of help to guarantee their spot. But for others, it's definitely a little bit of a red flag. So definitely take
Yeah,
advantage.
yeah. Also, to Jay's point about properties being in foreclosure, we certainly saw this more often some years ago back during the big housing crisis, where lots of homes were going into foreclosure because people couldn't make their mortgage payments. But things are cyclical, and I'm sure this is coming around, and particularly now with the financial circumstances, unfortunately, we're probably going to start seeing some homes going into foreclosure in the not too distant future, and I would foresee more and more of these sorts of rental scams to, oh, here's a nice property with rooms for rent, and
Yep.
So yeah, definitely if it seems too good to be true, or the price seems way too low for that nice neighborhood, nice gated community with the pool and the playground and tennis courts and all, then definitely come check with somebody. Come to our office if you're in the community. Check with legal aid. There are also ways to do some without too much difficulty, to do some public record searches to find out who the owner of a house is, which could be the bank. And to find out whether a house is in foreclosure. There are ways to check that, but certainly if you don't know, then come consult somebody before you sign that lease, because otherwise you may be stuck, as Jay said, paying out a boatload of money that you're not really going to get back. It's very hard to get money back once it's paid out to scammers. It's very hard, and like we said, usually they'll stop answering. Not by coincidence, they will stop answering your calls, stop answering your emails. Sometimes they'll just pick up, if they ever had any hard locations that you knew of to begin with, they'll pick up and leave. A lot of times these transactions occur strictly over the internet, so you never really know who you're dealing with or where they're located anyway. But once that money is paid out, for the most part, you're going to have to write it off as a loss, and then you may have other hassles such as sheriff knocking on the door. You have to then move everything out and find another place. You start your housing search all over again and put more money down at another place. So it's definitely something to be aware of.
I tell everyone to go to the Orange County property appraiser, or whatever county it is, to the property appraiser, search out the street address, and you can find the name of the property owner. I have also had scams where the scammer is savvy enough to make business cards in the name of the owner.
Wow.
And so they're showing a business card with the name. I always tell people, that's nice. I can print out business cards that say I'm, the Dalai Lama, but that doesn't mean I am. So check IDs. Any owner of a rental property should be willing to show you their ID to prove their identity. Just tell them, hey, I've been worried about scams, or I've had friends that were scammed. Can you show me proof of who you are? A business card's not proof of who you are. An ID card is. And usually the driver's license matches up to the property appraiser's name as the owner. You're going to be okay. But if they refuse or they start hedging, that's a red flag.
And a legit real estate company too, if you're going through Watson Realty or something else. Realtors not going to put their license on the line for something like that. So.
I have seen a couple of the Craigslist scams I got were the ad had the logo for a realtor, a real brick and mortar realtor.
Wow.
But they had a different number. And what I tell everybody is it's fine to look on Craigslist, and if you see something from Century 21 or whatever, and you really like it and you want it, Google Century 21, find the number yourself and call them and say, hey, do you have a property at such and such address? Because scammers are just as tech savvy as anybody else, and they can put fake information up there.
They sit around and spend a lot of time thinking about they can separate people from their money or from their information. It's that they can then use.
Yes, exactly. And just to put a fine point on it, Florida is always the top 3 as far as scams. And in Florida, it is Miami, Tampa Bay, and Orlando are the top 3. The Tampa Bay area is worse, but their reach includes Orlando. So I say we've got it just as bad. So we are in the hot spot for fraud and scams and all that.
Probably going to be wrapping up here in a little bit, but I just wanted to remind people that if you did have a question, you can type it into the comments on the live stream on YouTube, and we'll try to answer any of those. So with that, but probably my next part to go to kind of wrap this up. Let's say someone wasn't able to find it out, or they fell victim and they realized shortly after, like I gave my information on a phishing scam and I realized, oh no, that wasn't legit. What can I do? Jay, you want to start?
Okay. The first thing I tell everybody is if it has something to do with banking information or them getting your data, always go file a police report. That's the first thing. I'm not telling you to expect a whole lot to be done by the police department because there's just literally no way to catch these people. But anytime you dispute something on your credit report or with an agency that may extend credit, or some account is open that you didn't know about with the information that was gotten through the scam, you have that police report to say, here, it was serious enough that I went and filed a police report. My claim that this is, identity theft is legitimate. I'm willing to show up and testify against these people, and I didn't open this account. It gives you a lot more credibility than if you had just shown up and go, oh, well, no, that's ID theft. So file the police report, keep records of it. Keep a copy of the police report, or at least the police report and file number. And just make a folder and keep that stuff, because it may pop back up. It usually does. If you fall a victim to the cash scams, you probably aren't ever going to see the money back. So you just have to deal with that and move on, learn from it. Once you file the police report, a couple things you can do to prevent people from opening up accounts. I tell everyone to put a credit freeze on their profile. Go to any one of the big three, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and you can do a fraud report. You put a freeze on your account. Basically what that means is that no credit can be accessed on your credit profile. Nothing can be opened, not even by you, except you're going to get a PIN number, and you can call, unfreeze the account, give them your PIN number, do whatever transaction you want, like applying for that store credit card or whatever. And then they'll open it just long enough for that one transaction. And then you can freeze it again. But monitor your credit. If you don't do it at least once a year, you're probably missing stuff. I tell people to do it, 3-4 times a year sometimes. You can go to freeannualcreditreport.com, I believe it is, and get your free credit report.
I'll link it at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So check your credit report, because there may be, 10 accounts out there that you know nothing about. But eventually they're either going to come after you for it. They'll find you eventually, or, they're hurting your credit score right now. So those are the two things I would do. Call the police, make a report, take that report number, and go freeze your credit. And you can actually freeze your credit without having been a victim. So I do that for myself. I never had a problem with ID theft, and then I started doing consumer work, and I'm not kidding. I've had my ID stolen 5 times. So everything from my own bank with an internal job to Walmart credit cards being opened in my name. So I freeze my account. My credit profile doesn't move unless I call in and give a PIN number. So that's the safest way to do business nowadays.
Clark Howard has a nice credit freeze guide that I will link below in a pinned comment, in addition to where you can get your credit report. I don't know, Christina, for your students who maybe had been a victim of some sort of immigration-related fraud or anything, do you have anything to add as what you think they should do afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, following up on the great advice from Jay, definitely police report. Come and talk to us at UCF Global if you have concerns. We can always look up your record, your CVIS record, and verify information just for your peace of mind. But the other thing, as a member of the UCF community, is victim services. These events and being falling victim to these types of scams can be very personally distressing, especially, the fear that these scammers try to get you into. It can be a lot to deal with. And so victim services can walk you through how to set up, like, monitoring your credit, how do you request your credit report if that's something you're not familiar with, but also get you connected with counseling if that's something you need, just to kind of process the distress maybe that you experienced through that event. So there's a lot of resources around. I will say be very careful when pulling your credit report. I think there are some scammy type of websites out there because they want you to enter your social security number. So definitely link from government. There's a lot of government resources maybe that can be linked where they actually give you the link to the reputable sites.
Yeah. There's one that's set up by the bureaus. I'll link that below. That's the the legit free way to do it once every 12 months. A lot of times too, if you have a credit card or a banking account, they'll do that, at least your credit score. And that's a way if it changes or something like that, might be an indication that something's going on if you don't know about that. We did a presentation that would be on our Facebook. I'll try to link that below. Back in April about credit more in general, where we talk about kind of some of those monitoring things. And I'll make sure to put a link over to that stuff where you guys can check that out. Michelle?
I think
Sorry.
real quick, I think it's important too to remember that, you know, it's if you fall victim to those scams or are duped by the scammers, it's not necessarily a reflection of you. Like, they are very savvy. And so just to keep that in mind, because I've noticed that some people feel like really ashamed of that. And I think that's something we want to avoid, like the feeling of shame of being scammed, because these people are highly skilled and know just what to say to get rational people who would never under the normal circumstances give this information or pay with gift cards to feel very afraid and to do things they normally wouldn't.
It's very high pressure. I mean, I've been there where I've almost clicked on something and then, you know, been like, wait a second, that's not legit. So they're really good at making it seem like it is legit. And yes, if you fall victim, you know, please try not to blame yourself. They're really good at what they do. I mean, there are people that this is what they do, and they're really, really good at it. So yes, thank you, Christina, for adding that as well. We appreciate that. Michelle?
No, I think a lot of it's already been covered in terms of what we typically will advise students. Back to the credit reports for a second, what Jay was saying is definitely it's a good idea to check, even if you don't think that you've fallen victim to a specific scam. It is a good idea to check it regularly. I think the statistic is something like between 30 and 40% of credit reports have errors on them. Might be a little bit higher than that, but errors can be everything from it wasn't me that opened that Walmart account to, yeah, it was me. I didn't return that Spectrum piece of equipment 3 years ago, and now I owe them $270, but they've got it down here. It's listed here as I owe them $695 or something. So there's a whole range of errors. That's kind of topic for a separate presentation. But the main point being, it is a good idea to check your credit reports. Do it from a legitimate source, like Christina and Jay were saying. There are some scammy sorts of links out there. So we'll post the link to the legitimate sites where you can order all 3 of the annual credit reports, for free once a year. If you need them more than once a year, you may have to pay a small fee, or not, depending on the circumstances. If you fall in prey, you may be able to get another free one following that type of incident. But definitely it's a good idea to check it regularly. Bring it into our office if you have questions about what to make of it. There's lots of abbreviations and codes and things that are shorthand that's used by the credit reporting agencies when they provide these reports, and each company's report looks a little bit different in terms of format. So if you're not sure about that, bring it in, make an appointment, bring it into us, or contact Legal Aid Society if you're out there in Orange County, and we can help go through it with you and then kind of determine if there are errors. What's the next step? What can you do, or what can we do to try to help you dispute it, or try to get it removed or clean it up somehow.
That's great, Michelle. That's kind of we're going to wrap up. Does anybody have any final thoughts or things they would like to add? Well, I guess on that note, I'll say thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. All of our information, so I went ahead and linked the Legal Aid Society with their contact information, UCF Global with their information, and also our office down below. And then I will do that pinned comment with the further some of the stuff we talked about, the credit freezes, how to get your credit report. And I'll also go ahead and add some of our UCF community resources. So if you are a student, maybe some of those resources that you can reach out to if you do find yourself in this situation. And with that, hope you guys have a good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.